Welcome learners. The title of today's presentation is Evolution of Educational Technology. Let me cite the Association for Educational Communications and Technology, commonly known as AECT, has identified and defined educational technology as the study and ethical practices of facilitating learning and improving performance by creating, using, and managing appropriate technological processes and resources. The technology used in education and technologizing education are two different aspects, two pillars of educational technology. And the combination of these two actually gives a shape to educational technology. The technology combined with the processes and the facilitation creates an effective learning environment. With these percepts, the highlights of today's session would be history of educational technology, various phases of technological evolution, mediums of educational practices, future technologies in education. This session is dedicated to evolution of educational technology, and in order to know the phases of evolution, we will restrict our discussion to the history, phases, mediums, and future technologies. Here I would like to clarify the future technologies in education will help us to know the evolutionary trend, contemporary trend in educational technology. Well, educational technology encompasses e-learning, isn't it? It also consumes instructional technology, information and communication technology. Abbreviation is ICT, which is very common, and we all know about this acronym, which is extensively used in education. EdTech, learning technology, multimedia learning, technology enhanced learning, technology enabled learning, technology mediated learning, computer based instruction, commonly known as CBI, computer managed instruction, computer assisted instruction, CAI, internet based training, IBT, flexible learning, web based training, commonly known as WBT, online education, digital educational collaboration, distributed learning, various computer mediated communication. Now, before we delve into the history, phases, medium of instructions, and future technologies in education, let us have a quick review of concept of educational technology. And this visual with 4 quadrants give us a beautiful understanding of educational technology. And according to the AECT, they have defined educational technology as the study and ethical practice of facilitating learning and improving performance by creating, using, and managing appropriate technological processes and resources. And as the visual depicts the four quadrants, which are named respectively as portable, shared, static, and personal. And you can see that certain devices, certain tools are placed in each quadrant. Now, together they actually work towards the fruition of teaching learning process with the help of technology in education. Now we will traverse through the historical timeline of educational technology. Well, this visual is bold and clear enough to know the dawn of learning. As the visual depicts, it starts with the cave paintings, the very early visual communication methods, followed by abacus, which was a tool for mathematical calculations, followed by writing slates and blackboards. These are some of the early classroom instruction methods. Finally, followed by books and pamphlets. This is repositories of knowledge. So we can see how this wavy dawn of learning initiated and emerged with cave paintings and progressed to books and pamphlet. So this was the story of the dawn of learning. Now we come to another phase of evolution. We name it as industrial age innovations. How this dawn of learning is converting or merging into the industrial innovations. Advent of duplicating machines, educational films, various teaching machines, and large-scale assessments. All these tools and techniques contributed towards enhanced educational processes. So this was in the industrial age innovations. We move on to the next part, and that is the computer age and beyond. Here also we find enhanced learning experiences. Now this computer age and beyond is taking us to another step up the ladder, and it promises enhanced learning experiences. And this has been made possible through various avenues in the computer age and beyond. This beyond is the age we are living in, the present age. And of course, this present age is taking us to the future age too. Now let us get back to how this enhanced learning experiences can be achieved. These are achieved through computer-based instruction, online learning, internet and web, mobile learning, virtual reality, artificial intelligence. All these are contributing towards the enhanced learning experiences. The history of educational technology give us a picturesque evolutionary story of educational technology. And the impact of COVID-19 has brought about certain changes, shifts in the educational technology in education. What were those shifts? Now the visuals reflects three phases. The first one being rapid shift to online learning. It goes beyond discussion and explanation how the impact of COVID-19 has gave us a leap towards online learning, and how transition to digital classrooms have been witnessed due to this pandemic. Then increased investment in educational technology. This is undeniably true that surge in funding for technological tools and platforms came into fore in order to meet the educational needs and aspirations of the education. Next, we come across, interestingly, emergence of new edtech startups and solutions. From initial to final and beyond, how the impact of COVID-19 has contributed towards a surge in educational technology. It would be right to mention here that how educational technology evolved within a span of 1.5 or 2 years of pandemic. Right from shift to online learning to emergence of new edtech startups and solutions. We witnessed launch of innovative educational tech companies across the different stages of education, from school to the universities, across the courses, academic to vocational. Now, this was the story of the evolution of educational technology. The session will now take you all to another stage, which is termed as the phases of technological evolution. Now, what are the phases of technological evolution and how they are different from the stages or the era that have been discussed so far? So let us see how the phases of technological evolution impacted and contributed towards the growth and development of not only educational technology, but education or teaching learning assessment per se. Well, the very first phase is audio-visual phase. It is introduction of visual and auditory aids in education, followed by cybernetic phase. What do we find here? We see emergence of feedback-driven learning systems. That's very interesting. So we see how the phases are. So cybernetic phase moves on to psychology, sociology based phase. What is it? Integration of psychological and sociological principles in education. During one of the presentation, based on the concept of educational technology, we discussed that dehumanization and humanization of education is one of the thin line that describes educational technology. And also, it is asserted that educational technology never dehumanizes or ever calls for dehumanization of education. And this phase, psychology, sociology based phase, actually is the phase where education technology acts as the co-pilot. There are numerous psychosocial aspects which are involved in teaching, learning, assessment process. And alone technology cannot shoulder this responsibility. That is the reason that technology in education is never to be taken as dehumanizing the educational process, replacing teachers. This notion is absolutely wrong because there are psychosocial factors associated with learning. the educational technology enters into another phase, and that's the computer and telecommunication phase. As we are moving towards the final phase, it is to be remembered that the other phases through which this phase has crossed and reached its final destination, that is the computer and telecommunication phase, it has all the other phases within it as the basics, foundation, and applied. Now, this communication and telecommunication phase describes the development of digital and online learning platforms. We see too many edtech companies, integration of learning platforms to the traditional classroom practices. All these have been possible only due to the development of computer and telecommunication. So these four phases of educational technology gives us a review of the evolution of educational technology. With age and with phase, how education technology has taken a new shape, redirected and contributed towards the fruition of the objectives of educational technology. It has also supported that technology alone cannot thrive in the educational process. It has also cleared the notion that its goal is not to dehumanize education and thereby replacing teacher and taking the whole stage is not the mandate of educational technology. We see this audiovisual phase where the crux and thrust is on audiovisual aids, foundation of future innovation. This phase was teacher-centered. And as it was teacher-centered approach, the interaction was limited. And this phase takes the historical timeline as pre-1950s. Now we come to the next phase, that is the cybernetic phase. The cybernetic phase deals with many loops as it is represented in the visual. Well, the historical context is the effective communication and control systems are there. There were feedback mechanism, that is sailor monitoring course, adjusting steering wheel, that is the courses had adjustment, and also there were monitoring processes which contributed towards the feedback mechanism. Other than that, the cybernetic phase had a crucial focus on interdisciplinarity. It is described as bridging human systems with machine systems. And last but not the least, there was feedback loop. This feedback loop is illustrated through action, feedback, and adjustment. We move on to the next phase that is very interesting, psychology, sociology based phase. Well, the name suggests, as we have discussed a few minutes back, that it is towards humanizing education. But at the same time, embracing technology for the fulfillment of the objectives and need of the society is also very, very important. So how does this psychology, sociology phase look like? What are the basic foundations? What are the basic tenets of this phase? Well, this visual depicts four slices of parameters. The first one, historical roots. It is the foundations of educational theories and early teaching innovations. Next comes the behaviorist perspective. This behaviorist perspective, as we have learned in psychological foundation of education, under psychology of teaching and learning, it focuses on reinforcement, shaping, and systematic instruction. Then comes another school of thought, the cognitive perspective. It emphasizes on constructivist learning and active problem solving. And then comes the subphase, social influences. Importance of social interaction and collaborative learning. So all these parameters make up the psychology, sociology based phase. So the learning based on these phases augments and integrates the technology into the classroom or any learning environment and enhances learning outcomes. Now the last phase discussed, and this visual will give us a clear understanding of the computer and telecommunication phase. Well, we see there are few arrows which are marked with various factors of this phase. These factors, or can be also denoted as domains, are self-directed learning, multimedia integration, software-based learning, distance learning, and interactive learning. This computer and telecommunication phase is pervasive, and as I have already mentioned, the last three phases, right from audiovisual, then psychology, sociology, cybernetic phase, all culminates into this computer and telecommunication phase. Because in self-directed learning, there has to have the behavioristic or cognitivistic psychology. The principles should be embedded in the technology integration. Similarly, in distance learning also, advocating the open educational practices, the constructivistic teaching learning practices with the help of technology can augment the learning outcome and the philosophy behind openness. We move on to our next focus, the mediums of educational practices. This also forms a significant perspective under evolution of educational technology, because medium is the platform through which teaching learning is disseminated, isn't it? Well, what are the medium? These are very simple. Let us take a quick look at the different mediums of classroom or educational practices. Let us start from oral communication, that is, engaging students through spoken interaction and dialogue. Written communication, conveying information through books, articles, and written materials. Broadcasting and video by utilizing visual media to enhance learning experiences. Computer technologies, integrating digital tools and software for interactive learning. And finally, the social media, connecting and sharing educational content through online platforms. So these are the mediums of educational practices. And we can understand why this has been chosen as one of the parameters in the evolution of educational technology, because right from oral communication to social media, it is traversing through the different phases and also the stages of educational technology discussed so far. Now, a quick review of these medium. The oral communication. This visual is clear enough to show the ancient roots to the technological advancements with examples of various tools, techniques, and processes in teaching learning environment. The written communication with its historical significance to modern education and the future trends. This visual takes us to the different tools, techniques, and processes that augmented through this written communication. Broadcasting and video, this evolution with the historical timeline is a picturesque representation from 1924 to the 2007, or we can, and there is an arrow, you can see, there is an arrow which shows beyond 2007 and beyond. From 1924, this has been chosen to start with because the first adult education radio broadcast by BBC was made in this year, followed by establishment of the Open University in the UK in the year 1969. MIT's Open Courseware project launches 2002. YouTube founded, later used for education from the year 2005. And 2007, we witnessed the launch of NSOU by Apple International. Now, let us look at computer technologies. This visual is an absolute understanding of how the computer technology is taking its way in enhancing the educational experiences of aspiring learners across the disciplines, across the needs of the diverse learners in various sections and sectors of education and society. Computer-based learning and computer networking. These two divisions further ramify into the various techniques and processes of educational technology. Subsuming to the key trends which describes personalized learning, gamification, virtual and augmented reality, blockchain technology, and the very recent one, artificial intelligence. How social media is taking into education and helping to enhance the technology enabled, technology enhanced, and mediating the technology into education through its various social handles like Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, wikis, and blogs. Although there are certain pros and cons of social media in education, the visual with the pros and cons give us a brief information on how these pros and cons can be calibrated and recalibrated to use it in educational experiences. Now, the development of technologies used in teaching up to 1990, a very quick collection of the technologies used in teaching. The slide gives an overview of all the timelines with its tools and technologies used. The development of technologies used in teaching from 1990. Again, you can see there are timelines with the educational technology tools and techniques, those were used from 1990 onwards. We come to the last phase of our discussion. It is also the last session highlight, which is future technologies in education. The evolution of educational technology took us to a very beautiful roller coaster ride through its various stages phases and medium of instruction involved during different phases and stages. Now, a quick look at the future technologies in education that is ramming into all the teaching learning mediums. Artificial intelligence. Because personalized learning, intelligent tutoring systems, and automated grading are captivating the educational scenario. Virtual and augmented reality, abbreviated as VR and AR, these are immersive learning experiences and hands-on simulations. With it, the blockchain technology, which secure and transparent record keeping of academic achievements and digital credentials. These are the academic administrative side of educational experiences, which are also very important, and the future is looking forward to this blockchain technology integration in the educational experiences. This is the smart classrooms, remote learning, and data-driven insights are coming up in the future to augment and enhance more joyful and experiential learning through technology. The session delved deep into the evolution of educational technology, right from its various stages in the timeline to the phases and ultimately the various medium of instruction and communication used during different phases and stages in the evolution timeline of educational technology. There are some exercises. These are some of the references